and whatever I see is smiling at me. Love is who I am.
Hello there, beloved Ascension pioneers, and welcome to this update here with me on the sacred mountain beach. I will talk about, once again, the processing and integration of the beloved, which is an ongoing theme for all of us, all you divine lovers out there. It is so important because as we move through relationships that are, you know, they don't happen to us. It's all in a way prearranged, predestined for us to choose these types of experience. And I'm going to talk about this in this video, the topic that many seem to overlook, especially in the New Age community, because just yesterday my sister of light told me that she heard someone say in these twin flame updates that, you know, don't worry, you're not humans, you're doing this for humanity. And it's like, what do you mean we're not humans? It's just, it's such a separation aspect as well, and there's still this approach of duality and, you know, perceiving ourselves not as humans, almost like not considering the human factor, which was, it's an ongoing theme. You know, I feel like this first layering of what people call the twin flame experience was the self-merge. But when you do that, it activates you to levels which are much greater beyond what's really happening just in your personal level. When you have, let's say, a personal relationship with someone or a personal aspect of you coming out, there's deeper and deeper facets and aspects interplaying at the same time, because it's like layers of the onion, and the more we unlock these layers, the greater the potential to experience and to integrate on those levels will be for us through our relationships. And this is the horizontal path of the cosmic beloved expansion in the physical, and I have a beautiful course on that, so stay aware of that. Be aware of that. And the thing is that it's a weird experience when every time we say, oh, the human is less than, the human experience is not as worthy, we are star beings, we come here. And this is a game of duality that's been happening for eons and eons of time. It's almost like if you've been reading the stories from the Bible or even some of the books, like it's even described in The Prism of Lyra, which is the book I highly recommend to all those of you interested in going deeper into this self-integration on all levels, not just embracing your bigger levels, but the human self is never equally accepted or important. We cannot become masters of polarity and truly have a beloved union, which is a cosmic union, on all these layers of the onion without that. There's no such thing. The moment we deprive one aspect, when we reject it, when we negate it from the whole experience, when we exclude it, when we perceive it as less than, then we cannot truly step into mastering our own polarities that are playing out on many different levels. So you've probably heard these stories that said, you know, the humans did something wrong. They weren't careful for the environment. They didn't, you know, respect the earth, or they, you know, they tried too much with these experiments, went too much in the mind. Let's just wipe them off the planet. And many times we have this collective patterning still. It's still engraved within us, like, did I do something wrong? I'm probably going to be punished for it. And it's happening on a macro level and a micro level at the same time. So we're processing this. The deeper we're moving into the self-union, it's not just union of spirit and matter, feminine and masculine, it's also the union of all these galactic archetypes coming together. So in between what we would call the basic polarity, the divine masculine, divine feminine, you know, it cannot be. Life cannot exist, all this creation cannot exist if the masculine and feminine essence of creation don't kind of like separate in order to create a triangulation aspect. There would be no life. We just have a bunch of antimatter and, you know, just light. We wouldn't have all this creation. But why do we have it? Do we ask ourselves? It's because these two aspects needed to, they were never separate. But in order to create this dynamic tension of magnetism and electricity, this pull, you know, when we kind of know in our relationships, we're always feeling as push and pull, push and pull. Why do we call it like this? It's because we feel like this, we're coming a little home, but then we kind of take a step back and again and again. So this is how integration is taking place in spirals, in loops. And these cycles that are going on in the relationships that are returning, I have to say that I never have been getting the Six of Cups in Tarot more than now. Is the returning energies that are coming back to us. And why do we have so many planets now continuously being retrograde, and one steps out of the retrograde motion, the other one goes back in? So it's like we're on all levels being reminded to take a deeper look into where are we not truly inviting in all these aspects. And I'm going to talk about this and how we have been perceiving things as just black and white. The same goes with the ego, light and ego, soul and ego. We had this division concept within us for so long. So that's why we weren't able to feel into the bigger picture. It's interlayering. It's think of layers of the onion. Like, the more we unlock the potential, the more of the external region of that onion we step into, but at the same time, because we're a toroidal field, we bring it back to the vortex, we bring it back to the within, and that is how integration truly takes place. So you move out and expand, and you contract again. And a lot of times we're not embracing the contracting parts of our experiences and the human processing, and we're saying, oh, my higher self gets this. You know, I get this from all the people who are more advanced in their star transmissions and their knowledge of their higher self connection. These are the people that are most likely feeling that. And when I have sessions with people, I talk to people, these people are feeling this the most. And they're saying, why do I have all this knowledge and connect to energies? And when I do healings on others and I know everything, I get all the transmissions, but why not for me? And I've been having the same feeling. And the thing is that we're becoming that vortex. For us, we don't feel that dynamic push and pull because we're always in our vortex. So for us, it doesn't feel that special when we don't have to channel for ourselves. We are that channel, we are the vortex. But when we do that for others, there's a dynamic tension, this pull that is brought into creation, because that's how creation multiplies. It's how everything, from the creation principle standpoint, that's how everything expands. That's how life in creation is formed. That's how interactions are always fueling life to move forward and forward. But if we're stuck on a certain perception of what is the beloved, what is the soulmate, what is the twin flame, we're never going to expand beyond the reaches of time and space. We're going to stay stuck with something that is just one layer of the onion. And we're so vast as beings. We're multidimensional. We're cosmic. And yet the work that we're doing now, that's the paradox, happens on our human level, happens at the most minute level of our human experience, because now it's getting so important. We're getting zoomed in so much, and people are in a way feeling that frustration because they're being mirrored back to themselves and these returning dynamics through returning relationships. And what people do, they still often see everything as events, or that when this happens, it must be something about that person. We still make it physical, external, rather than what is the energy that wants to continuously be embraced, but I'm pushing it aside. I'm going to give you one example. You meet someone, and maybe you kind of like see this curve. The dynamics between you is they kind of go away, they come back, and you read something online about this, and you immediately think, well, that must be my twin flame because I have this push and pull dynamic, or they keep returning to my life, although you never kind of seem to stick. It's not the person that has the harmony, you know, the harmonious convergence that can take place in the two becoming like stable, becoming a vortex pillar together with that unison. So people make these assumptions very fast, and they're not spiritually adept and developed enough to know what this is about. So the mind makes this assumption. And what we do is we create a belief system, and we hook our matrix hooks onto it. And I would love to, as I'm mentioning this, I hope I have it here, but I would love to mention to you to read that book from my sacred friend. It's called The Matrix Exposed. This is from my sister Katrina from Sacred Mysteries. And I just started reading her book, and I love it because it's so simple. It's like talking to her. It's not even like, you know, it's not that structured reading. It's very beautiful. And it's simple because the deepest truths are the most simple. It's where are we being hooked to something we even perceive as our own belief. It can be, it's not just what we perceive as an external belief or hooking into others, hooking into that of the, you know, the collective matrix, which is, you know, wants to keep us in a certain framework of consciousness. And we want to kind of move out and expand out, and yet a part of us is like, you know, I'm hooked to it. The same can happen with our own hooking. We can become our own hook. It doesn't have to be through the collective or through other people in our relationships. When we have a belief that we're rigid about it, we see it maybe happening only like a flat line. We're not wanting to go into the surface. It will happen the same thing. You know, the same thing will happen because we're going to think that's it. And I meet a lot of people who, on this path, who maybe study a bit of spirituality, kind of know they're just beginning, and they think they have it all figured out. Okay, relationships are like this, that you have the karmic, the soulmate, the twin flame, that's how it is. And then you meet and you just kind of share a little bit of your experience and immediately want to define, this must be karmic, this is what you have. And, they think they can be smart for another person just because they read something or they studied something. There's just the basic stuff. But there's a lot of us here, especially volunteer souls, who have, in a way, we have a vice versa. We have a reversal procedure as in how energies are affecting the planet than most people, because the most people who are ascending for the first time, reconnecting with their higher self aspects, what we're doing is we're actually descending. We had to descend from other other systems, and we basically were light coming and fractaling itself so that we could take form. We had to go through many stargates. We had to separate, it's not separate, but spread out. I'm going to say spread out different aspects of ourselves. And these aspects are serving us from these different stations, let's say Pleiadian, Sirius, Arcturian, all of these stations, right? But here on the Earth, we're a synthesis of all this. So we have antennas into all these directions. But what I'm showing now is we are embodying this. We don't need to go outside anymore and connect to this portal or that portal. The cosmic beloved is the path when you embody all these aspects. So for a lot of us who were descending from higher realms to assist this earth at this time, for us, we didn't have karma, we didn't have personal relationships because we weren't involved in this cycle. So we weren't involved with certain of these souls. But for us to come here, we needed to choose certain souls to be our companions, to be our triggers, for us to master ourselves in the physical, to embrace more of our physical aspects. I will share my own journey with you, some parts of it, how that affected me, and then I'll talk about this ego thing that we want to so radically eliminate, which is an ongoing process in the New Age movement, is this separation and seeing ego as just like ego soul. There's many layers. Even ego has many layers, and we cannot group it like this anymore. We got to be more aware about what's really taking place. We got to work with our highest aspects, which give us this information, which have this information, and we embody it then. So for me, because I know, and I was shown, and I didn't remember any of the lives, I only remembered and felt Atlantean times, and even then, it was the priesthood life to just serve. It wasn't a life in incarnation that most people would say when you're experiencing, and that's all the memory. And when I spoke to my council, and I will talk about these councils and soul groups and all of this in my next galactic update, so stay tuned for that, because there's more coming in, and there will always be more coming in, because there is always more, right? That's my motto. And I was shown that, and specifically the words that came were that I'm part of the group that seeds the light of creation into the worlds that are ascending, into these ascending reality worlds. And that's what I do. It's just the signature of my always ongoing purpose wherever I am. This is my main signature, and it's how I do it. But on each system there is an adaptation. There's a learning curve. There's a new prototype, because nothing in creation is ever known. Nothing is 100% fact. It's all continuously moving through the unknown factor as well, through that mysterious void, which is, that's why our reporting goes back to the star stations and then back. It's kind of like a loop. There's a spiral of the information that's circling around, and a lot of times when we think of our higher self connection as only the upward connection, then we're really not feeling and seeing into the bigger picture, because it's an influx of energy, and you're reporting, and as you're ascending and growing in your humanness, the information comes back again with the seeds that you've put out there, and you're saying, hey, my highest aspects, I'm feeling on a human level this and this and that, and it's in your dream time you're processing all of that, so it comes back to us. And for me, I have to say, because of this, I was not used to being so physical, even when I was a little child. And I remember being in the kindergarten, and kids were so mean. Even as little tiny children, they were so mean. And every time I came home and I cried to my mom, I was like, mommy girl, and I was crying in her lap, saying, Mom, why are kids so mean? I just want to play. I just want to love them. And there's still an aspect within me that continuously says, when you meet people who, they kind of turn to their ego and get very much into these, projection of their own feelings and onto you, and they're just like lashing out. I have the same voice that kind of comes out and says, but I just want to play. This innocent child, this crystal child within me is always the same. But through the experiences I've had and acquired, I've also grew in my earthly wisdom. Because although I had cosmic wisdom, I had to master myself on earth, and I'm still doing it. I'm not done with this. No one is. And certain things are challenging and hard even for me, because it's a learning curve. And the part of us that's experiencing the human child, the creation, which is the birth of our human child, our divine magical child, is that which we need most compassion for. And still, I will reiterate what I've always shared with you, that we're not ascending into our higher selves. They're already ascended. We are ascending in our human form. We're ascending the human experience. We want the human aspect to be ascended and embraced as well. And it starts with the first wave. How it's going to be playing out and what's going to be in an ongoing process, no one knows for sure. And those who say they do not know. Because it's something that you set in motion, and then although you are the one who set it in motion, you also see how it's rolling out, how it's going to spin itself out. So with my experience, there was a part of me that never wanted to be fully human, that never wanted to fully incarnate, if you know what I mean. And I even had people who, they did these charts, or they just energetically read to you, and I was told that I'm half ethereal. And half ethereal is the 5th density level. The 7th density is the ethereal. The 5th density is the half ethereal form. I'm going to share more about these aspects in my next galactic update. So please, if you're interested, stay updated for that in my videos, or subscribe to my channel. But the thing is that there was an aspect of me that never wanted to fully become human, so I rejected certain things. It's not the same as judgment, because I never judged the human experience. I've always just been an observer. It was more like data gathering for me. I never said, oh, humans are, I'm judging them for this, I'm judging people who eat meat or they do that. I was never like that at all. So I never knew a part of ego, and I said ego has many layers to it. That was manipulative, that was backstabbing, that was judgmental, that was hurtful, that was, in a way, sometimes, people feel jealousy. I never knew that feeling. I still don't know how it feels. But for me to embrace the full spectrum of the human experience, I needed to meet people who had all of that. And one of my biggest triggers was my awakening relationship, which was the meanest, most badass relationship ever. And it was so manipulative that as I once found the strength to enter out of it, which was actually exit out of the relationship, later as I was gathering my spiritual knowledge so I could actually fill myself with enough light to be able to stand my ground now as a human, not just saying I don't know it all in spirit, but how does my life in a human form match that? Can I live as an empowered being? Do I know? Do I walk my talk? That was the mission. That was the mission of all these star beings who came here. They cannot deny the human factor. We got to have beautiful lives as humans. There is no other way. And the thing is that as I did that, I was gathering this for so many years. And although it was so hard for me at that time, and I neutralized an aspect of it, and I felt neutral towards it. But still, after 7 years, which is a cycle in itself, it's when our cells supposedly transform completely. 7, sacred initiation, 7 years is a very sacred number. After 7 years, this relationship, this energy came back. And what I was shown was that, okay, now this time you show whether you really own it. Not just walk away from it and to develop your spiritual knowledge and wisdom about it, but are you owning yourself? Are you still allowing that to hook you? Are you being now truly wise as your sovereign? And part of me doubted that. But as I spoke to my friend, and in our sisterhood, we always focus on encouragement. We don't put ourselves down. We lift ourselves up. That's the main thing about those of us who have this knowledge. That's what we do. And when we do that, we grow stronger. It's like our melting pot is expanding. We are like spinning vortices, and we connect together. It's like, boom, you have a big bang happening, and that's what's happening. So she said to me, but you're actually showing to yourself that your human self is a badass, that you're doing it. And I felt so empowered by that, because a part of me had this feeling like, oh, I'm not doing it. My human self sucks, and we all have sometimes these moments when we feel that what you already know as your higher self, why can't you embody as a human? Why is it sometimes so hard? It's because we're simply yet not embracing the outfolding, the processing that our human self, that our beautiful child wants and needs to go through. Because a lot of times, before an experience happened to me, I already negated it. I said, oh, I already felt predistant, for example, the energy of a certain person, and I didn't want them to come into my presence. And yet there was a factor that needed to happen so that my human master could grow, so that I could have an actual experience. And I didn't want it. And I remember once this person was supposed to come and see me, and they already bought a plane ticket. I'm like, no, please. And I wanted to cancel them. And it needed like 3 or 4 times for them to persuade me. And I said, okay, fine, just come, I'm fine, right? And I knew a part of me, that the connected part, knew it's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy for me, because for me the easiest part was always to be in this beautiful service to all, divine love, this union. I always was in this energy. I always knew that part for me was self-obvious, but the human love is something I needed to learn and master. So through these experiences, they were almost like my grounding gateways into what in the human level needs to be loved and experienced. Oh, I'm having tears now. This is the truth, right? We've been, for so long, and I feel such deep compassion when I say this now, for so long, we've been such meanies. We've really been bullies to our own aspects that said, well, love me anyway. I have a bad thought right now about someone, or I'm kind of resentful or something right now, but love me anyway. And I remember I spoke to this woman once on Skype, and she said, you're already up there. No more going up. You're just going down. And she said to me, no, just love the people. But what she really meant, what I really perceived through that was love all of you, because you are the people. We're all these aspects. So when someone comes to you, or an energy dynamics comes, it's a returning, we see it as a returning relationship, but it's actually that which that relationship represents to us. And I teach that in my Cosmic Beloved course. How can you assess these energies so that you deal with them on a human level, so that you start loving them, so you can become a perfect Cosmic Beloved, but on earth? Because the earth aspect is what was been almost like trying to be excluded from the whole equation. Let's say we on a galactic level, as galactic beings, because we all have those aspects, created this. We created this as an experiment. So when the human had an ego, and now in the New Age we say, oh, the ego is bad, it's just because we've remembered how it took us into separation, and that's why now we want to judge it, instead of seeing its worth and value for the cycles of growth that we needed for that evolution. And instead we want to say, oh, it's the darkness fault, it's this fault. We're still seeking fault. We're playing the victim card when we do that, instead of seeing, but how do we choose it on a bigger macro level? These extensions, the human aspects of our galactic aspects, were just the same. They just had their own playground, which was, planet Earth, their own experiences. And now why do we want to say, oh, it's not as important, it's not as equal to our stellar counterparts? We are ascending these aspects. And when I was shown this the first time, and when my twin soul came to me, and it spoke to me these words, and it said, you got to remember our mission, because a part of me at that time felt, why did I have to go through these relationships? They're so hard. Why are people like this? I'm not like them. A part of me always said, but I'm not like them. Why do I need to meet them? And later I was shown, because these are the aspects that the human collective, because there's a lot of us who don't work on a personal level, remember that. We work on the creation core level. We're shown the most wounded, deepest aspects. Tears, and that's always the truth. We're shown these deepest aspects that were so rejected and so denied for such a long time. And when someone comes to you and they're manipulating you, what they're actually doing, and you're feeling that, and you're saying, oh, I don't want this, and you're saying, oh, that person, why are they so manipulative? Why are they so mean? And what they're doing is they're actually manipulating themselves. They're actually being mean to themselves, but you're feeling it. And there's still a part of you, even though you're not like that, you're still rejecting it. And you're saying, I don't want this, get away, go away. We want the boo-boo to go away. But what we really need is love, and say, I see myself in that person, although me physically, I don't choose to align with that energy. I'm out of that. But the seed of it exists anywhere, because the potential of the human experience and the prime initiative was to feel all. The free will was to feel free so much you can create your own paradise or your own demise, your own little hell. So when we have references of hell through the biblical terms, we think of it as the devil or Satan or whatever it is. I don't fall for these things, but these are just aspects of us that are showing us that we're, like devil or Satan, there's this figure there that's guarding the gates of hell, and like they decide who gets to exit out, or it's our own imprisonment. It's something that we've created, and there's this falsity all around it. But we are the only ones who can set this free by loving these aspects. Because the more we kind of push them down, and I talk to people and they say to me, but why does it take so long for me to get this, what I already know, to get it in a human form, to get it as an experience? Is because we have this perfectionist tendency to get it all right at the right time, in the right place. And this perfectionism, again, is not coming from love. The love of the perfection and perfect harmony is exactly the opposite of that. It's seeing the harmony and perfection even in that, even in the slow pace, in the the seemingly non-moving things, the things that don't go your way at your time. For me, my biggest trigger for that was my mom, because sometimes she was so slow and clumsy at certain things, and I was always fast and hyper. I was like a thunderball. I was always like this. I saw myself as a rushing fireball through this cosmos. And I even have so much fire in my chart. And when I was confronted with her energy, which is more softer, more vulnerable, I mean, I'm vulnerable too, a lot, but in a different way. So when I met her as an attribute of me, exactly that's what it is, because we all are a collective, even though you have an individualized self and you don't have to choose certain things and you don't embody them, you're still meeting aspects of the whole of humanity like this. That's what service to other souls do. It's not just a personal experience, and yet it is, if you know what I mean. It's not that we're not humans just doing it for humanity. We are the humanity. And of course we're human. I have this body. Who am I? I'm not a Pleiadian now. I have these aspects. They're working through me. They're within me. But I am also human. I'm not just human, but I also am. And I'm embracing this aspect. And I need to love this aspect. So when I was met up with this counterpart through my mom, I was actually shown how much I've grown softer. And because in the beginning I used to be kind of like, oh, come on, hurry up, come on, let's go. And sometimes I can still be like that, but not to the degree and to the extent that I used to be. So we're growing so much softer for all these aspects, for the slow, for the lazy, for the manipulative, for the distorted, for the part that's always, shutting down, I'm caving, I'm going out. These are old templates. The new density human will not have that anymore. So when sometimes, I meet people and they say to me, I'm writing this book about how men need the caving, women are different. Well, it's still old energy. We're still telling ourselves these old stories. Men need to cave, women are waiting for them. And in this twin flame communities and scenarios, this is the same thing. Guys are caving, women are waiting. Will he choose me? Will he not choose me? What should I do? Should I send him love? I will heal him. There's this aspect of the woman thinks she's going to heal the man of her dreams. How will these aspects of us then ever grow up and mature on their own if we think someone else will heal them? We're healing by embracing all these aspects, by loving them, but not loving for them. We cannot do that. Unfortunately, as unique beings, we cannot do that. But we are given the grace of acceptance and of true love and unity. Unity means all aspects. So in this next chapter, this next segment, I want to talk more deeper into this theme of ego. And why do we make it so separate as black and white, okay? So I want to start this segment by sharing my story with you, my most recent story, which was meeting up with this old energy. And the thing was, before I walked away from it, and like I said, I gathered my spiritual awareness, and now I was confronted whether I would love this aspect. Well, because only when we truly love it, we're not hooked into it, because love sees everything through the eyes of love, because that's what love is. And our separate self would see it as, that's bad. And we all tend to say sometimes, oh, why do people do that? Why are they like this? It's okay to say it from a place of neutral observation when you're just gathering data about the human nature, and you're saying, wow, you're asking yourself questions. Why are people mean sometimes? Why are people like that? But when you go into the extremes of saying, oh, people are so like this, they're mean, they're like this, and you're like having it said with extreme resentment and emotion, with sometimes even anger, and you're complaining about it, that's when we're not coming from love. So recently, after this experience, and I started to process it, I knew that I'm processing it on many levels. So if someone would see it only on the surface level, they would say, wow, this person, they did this to you, now you're having this karmic experience, and now you need to let it go or forgive. It's just such a tiny, minute level. But what's really happening for me and my mission, because I'm working with these imprints of the collective archetypes and how they were playing out, now we're unifying them. So when the female and male dynamics are being played out through these relationships, is the feminine aspect within us is the embracing, it's the inviting, it's the magnetic force. The male is the electric. So why are we having so many examples of men doing something seemingly wrong and women saying, there, it's okay, but I love you anyway? And what we're saying is, because, I was just recently told by someone that we always say, oh, you cannot come just from yourself, right? I mean, you always have to come just from yourself and your heart. But sometimes our language is too evolved for certain beings that don't understand this language. So I had this recent experience when I said to someone that everything is always perfect, and it's always unfolding perfectly, and everything is always within this greater, true divine love. But how they translated that in their less aware state, not so much understanding of that, and I'm not fragment in that. I'm just saying it was a different perspective, different angle of how they experienced this was, so I can do anything and I can do anything and I'm still fine and I still get out just fine, right? I still no blame, no shame, right? No blame, baby. The thing is that we needed to also learn, especially for me, this goes very much really important in my life. We needed to embrace also sometimes how to speak the human language and say things through our human feeling side of life. Because if we get too universal about it, certain people will not understand and they won't feel that we also have feelings that we need to. We're just as everyone else. We just have an ascended awareness that descended onto the planet. That's the only difference. But that doesn't make us more or less than them. It just makes us more aware and more conscious of our experience. So we're becoming more conscious of what we're creating. That's the only difference. That's not the separation. It's just a different angle of view. So when this happens is they will oftentimes filter it through their own projection. And if they do end up doing something that you would feel hurt after, or you would feel, wow, I was really betrayed, or there's a resentment or anger coming out of it, we still need to speak out our feelings. There's a collective tendency of those of us, we've never fully been able to express ourselves. Next to the people who are like our tribe, our vibe, we felt really comfortable. So for example, with my mom, I always felt accepted. And with her, I could have a raging attack of anger or something when I was processing came out. With beings who didn't so much understand my heart, didn't feel me or see me who I am on a bigger level, they weren't, because we can only see up to the level where we're developed ourselves. So with these beings, I had a different experience, and I always kind of shriveled a little back, or my heart just contracted and I couldn't say anything. I just couldn't find the words. I'm just and I'm listening to that, I'm acknowledging them, and I'm saying I unconditionally love you, but I didn't fully love the aspect of me that also wanted to interact in their way. But that part shriveled up because it didn't feel accepted. So when I spoke to that person, they were giving me some guidance, and they said to me, you know what, you got to speak their language sometimes as well. Plus, what this meant for me was that I needed to really learn to express, but through a more simplistic way, because I always got a slap in my back if sometimes I said too much in a too universal language. It wasn't really appropriate. So what we need to do is really filter through that adjustment. We need to become like shapeshifters, and watch my video on Ascension and service to others, because it does pose an important question to all of us. How are we really of service through that lens of knowing where we are and how we serve, but not giving off of ourselves, to embrace all these aspects, to feel them through another, but not necessarily becoming. I'm not going to become the energy of manipulation. It's just not me. I don't have such an ego that I would need that, because I'm just who I am. And I know my heart is pure. But that means that I won't judge anymore the factor that is brought to me by another. That's the energy that really wants to be embraced. And because we do the work on a more cosmic level, we are the responsible ones for these energies. And when we have the inner battle, the clash of wills that's happening within us, because your heart might say, but I want to love anyway, and the mind says, no, I'm the authority, that just hurts you, blah, 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 right? We're merging these two aspects, or more aspects, that want to have their own voice, but we need to do that eternally first. That doesn't mean now you'll be so loving that you will hang out with everyone, even if they're still being mean. But the thing is, I'm going to say this little tiny secret, that the moment when you do this inner alchemy and transformation of embracing these energies, people who are like that, they either won't be like that with you anymore, or they will just disappear from your life. Even if it's someone who's so stick to you, like a little tiny, mosquito maybe, coming to suck your blood, all of a sudden, they just realize they don't want this anymore, they go away, or something like that will happen because you did the inner work. The energies are returning because we are either ready or not to embrace these aspects of the human collective nature. But that nature is transcending into a new state, but first it needs to be loved and embraced for the experiences that were created along the way. Because it's almost like you can't move from third density to fifth density, or whatever kind of density, without really seeing what that experience served for anyway. And a lot of people who talk about these twin flames just as, two people coming together, they have the relationship, that's all there is about, they're not seeing the bigger picture. It doesn't end there. It doesn't end on a personal relationship level. When you start expanding in your consciousness, you're going to have things be brought to you to the extent that you're able to work at and transform through, it will come to us where we hold the capacity to do that work. And as much as my human self, often even in my dream states, I'm having these weird processing dreams, I know that my bigger self is there doing the work, because I have sometimes a lot of people who tell me I was in their dreams and I guided them and I did these things and I don't remember. I'm like, I just have these human processing dreams. It's because there's a part of me that's really needing to be doing this on the most deepest, the less embraced up until this point human aspect. So I've already shared this with you. I don't know if you've been following that, but I've had the most amazing experiences for a while with these light beings and seeing these lights, and in my dream time having these amazing meetings and with my family and these soul families members and giving me these messages. And for a while now, maybe it's a year, I don't know, but as I started my descension process, and I teach about this, how ascension is a multi-layered process. As I started my descension journey, this all went away, and a part of me was scared, and I felt left out, and I said, I no longer feel special, I don't have this. And as much as the voice of that spirit always told me, this is just a cycle for you now. This is you, you're human master, you gotta own it now. You're not going to see these fantastic attributes because you've already gone through that cycle. Now you became all of this. You are this is your vortex. But the human mind, sometimes it filters in the wrong way, and it needs lots of time until it really gets it, until the understanding travels from your highest aspect into your human form. That's an awesome journey. And we can't speed it up in our own time. It just happens on its own. So the integration part is that of love having its way to transform. And when we have an experience and we don't know how to process, and it continuously reoccurs, comes back to our dreams and feels like, oh, this person haunts me. It's not the person that haunts you. It's what they represent to you. So for me, that person that came back after 7 years most deeply represented the energy of that manipulation. And not just that, but what I've always seen as a play out, and I was told now as well through this companion coming my way and offering this as well as guidance, was that there was always this play that an aspect of me still wanted to be understood by them, although my authority self, the knower, knew that that's not possible because they themselves are not at the level even to understand these higher aspects and to be in divine love. They don't yet have the capacity of that divine remembrance yet. But still that part was hoping maybe they'll see, maybe they, and not just for that person. So that means when you do the inner work that you yourself, this most needy aspect, oh, please understand me, please, 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 needs to be embraced. That most human, left out, rejected aspect wants to be embraced, and that person is just showing you. But in the true nature, how can this less aware, I'm not trying to classify it, but for the purposes of talking to you now, I'm going to use words. So let's say, how can the less aware part be fully acceptive of that which is more aware? It cannot happen. So the aware, the more expanded onion self, big onion levels, like engulfing all of those. So when we expand, like I said, we're turning back with our descension and loving all that's on our way, all the way. So that's what's actually happening. And about the ego thing, with this recent experience that I was told, the person just shows you that you also have the ego and you just have to love it and accept it. But I started to think about that because, again, it's not so black and white. And I know, and I've seen many people talk about ego in their own way, and there's a lot of talking about it, like, ego needs to die, or love it, or either way, right? But ego it has so many layers, just like soul has many layers, and we have these divine attributes. The attributes of soul are like this, the attributes of the ego might be like this. And we don't all have the ego in this way that some people have. We don't necessarily embody it. Like I said, for us, it's about loving it. It's about loving even those aspects when they're shown to us. And they're saying, please, 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 just love me anyway. And that's what we do. But that doesn't mean I'm going to become manipulative and then love it at the same time. No, you don't have to become the essence. You just have to know that these different filters of the human experiences are all one. And by someone else carrying that energy, it's also part of you, although you as this physical being do not necessarily have that choice and you're not aligning with it. But still, it's a part of the human experience. That's what I mean when I say these things. So the ego can be anything from spiritual ego, the deep ego when you're just completely seeing just the self-absorption. Only I exist, right? And I had this in this relationship. The person always needed to get their way. And whatever I said, whatever I did, they always ended up turning the word. So in the end, I was always to blame. If I said this didn't happen that way, or you didn't do this, and they would say, yeah, because you didn't do this and this in the first place. But that doesn't exist. This is not a game of win or lose. This is not like what was there first, the chicken or the egg. It's all a parallel experience. And a mature soul, a mature being would look into how this started for them, not where it started physically or who said and done what first. That's still a childish, immature approach. But when people do that, we got to see it and love that anyway. We don't have to become like it. But what I'm saying here is that how do we interact with these aspects? If we're going to still fall for these tricks and be triggered, it means something's still there, something we still didn't fully love, because the moment we do, we're not falling for it. The trigger is no longer there. It doesn't exist. When we say people push buttons, well, are there buttons there in the first place? If there's no buttons, you cannot push anything. You can just love the whole being, right? So the thing with even with the matrix and our hooks, and people would say, why did I hook to this person? Or why did I let them drink my energy? Well, you become a part of that vampiric dance at the same time. So a part of us that didn't love the processing, the experience, that, oh, you know, I'm so an ego, why did I do that? And we judge that part. So that's what I see, the ego. It's the part of us that's always judging our experience, not being a certain way with someone. For me, I never had this ego like I would get resentful and I held that energy. It came and go. It's just the processing of the energy of that, which is a possibility of human experience. But my friend described to me that for her, ego is when we identify with this. If we identify with this manipulation, if we identify so much on a deep level that we just become it. There's no other way we're able to respond or communicate, because the identity is formed around it. Then we hooked into the matrix with this. Out of the matrix means that you don't judge it, but still you hook out of it because you know that no longer aligns with your choices, and you're becoming a free sovereign being, a galactic being that wants to be fully free and loving and expansive, and that's what you're choosing. But when these hooks and aspects come to you, you got to learn to love them anyway. So the processing is something that we need to embrace. These aspects that just want to be loved through us. The processing sometimes takes a while. For me, when this part feels, and when it has those processings that I know they're not happening just as a physical relationship with this person, I know I'm processing on so many levels because I've chosen to do this. When we do this, it's out of the collective grid. It stops to exist. That's what we've chosen to do this work. And although it's hard, and we rather wouldn't do it. I rather just wouldn't get involved, but the experience part says, I'm going to get involved anyway because I know why. So we got to start trusting this human aspect more because it has the wisdom. It knows what it's doing. Sometimes I feel like, oh, the human, why is it like this? It's almost like a bigger part of you would not trust the human, and we didn't. That's why, like I said, there's the story that the human beings were often eliminated from the planet. They wanted to be. Well, there was like a part of them grabbing on, and there was a purpose to it, and there was always the continuation of life, but we cannot take it for granted. We got to start owning our human essences, but transforming them at the same time. So when I love the aspect that's manipulative, only then can I transform it. I don't know how. Sometimes when I'm asking myself, how do I process this? Am I doing it the right way? It's almost like this doubtful part of us because it's unknown. It's unknown territory. I mean, there's very few humans who've gone there before who have been embracing every single aspect and still managed to get out on the other end and say, wow, I am love, and be joyful and be in bliss. And a lot of us are doing that now at this day and age. It's happening now. It's not something in the future. You're going to say, maybe in my next life I'll be like that. Stop using those excuses. You know, if you're already interested in this and it's pulling you, it's now. What other lifetime? You don't know. You know, just choose it. Choose everything in the moment without a goal. You wish to be at this place. You wish to be this much processed. You're always processing this because you're always expanding and growing. And the human ego, even the darkest aspects of it, we're propelling the human experiences so that the humans could learn more about themselves. But as this learning on one cycle ends and the human says, wow, I've learned everything I can on this aspect, now I'm becoming a more evolved human. And a different aspect of ego, a soul-infused ego, is birthed. And a lot of us already have soul-infused egos, which are still identities, but not in the same way. They're merged with the soul, but we cannot do that with that judgment. would feel these parts and aspects that we're still a little rejecting. And like I said, there's a big aspect of me that did not want to fully embrace the human experience, and I've read even in Dolores Cannon books that there's a lot of these new children who don't want to have kids, and they don't want to start, life too much in the physical or have families. They just want to do the mission and get out, And a lot of us had this. It was almost like a collective memory of what can happen to you for a lot. Even if you were not a part of the cycle, you know it, because we're one sisterhood and brotherhood, and we feel, wow, one can get entrenched in these cycles. I don't want that, so I rather will not have this and this and that. So you make these vows or agreements. But as you learn to love the human experience more, it kind of grows into you. You become it. And there's aspects of you that you're starting to accept. Like I was rejecting for a while an aspect of me to be a mother, a physical mother. I'm a mother in many senses, the way I birth. Every woman will always be a mother. It's a part of the nature of the feminine essence. But in a physical sense, to have that experience was very new to me, and because it was so new and unknown, you see, it's not the same when we judge something. It's just so unknown that we rather wouldn't go there. It's unknown and it's new. Doesn't mean we judge it, and that's how it was for me. And now certain aspects of the human nature and the physical human woman that I am are being reawakened. I'm like, wow, what's happening to me on the physical level? And still a part of me is not getting it, and it's new, but at the same time I trust the process, because there is no other way. The soul is leading the way, all the way. So it is a soul-infused ego. It's a merge. It's a mastering of polarity. It's not any more fragmentation. Like you exclude and you say, because I have this purpose and mission, I cannot have children, or I cannot family, or I cannot have a partner. It's when we still see it as a separation and something comes to the exclusion of something else. That's old. The new is all inviting, all including, but to the way that brings us joy and bliss. So, for example, I would not choose a partnership that would kind of not be harmonious to my mission. It needs to be compatible. Everything needs to come through the energy of compatibility. That is the higher fifth density human. And because you're choosing that and you're seeing the way towards it, that's what you're creating. Because I still meet people who say, oh, that higher love, it's not possible on a human level. We're humans now. And I said, well, maybe you start off as a human, but you evolve. And for me, it was more of a, having that higher consciousness, how to infuse it with the human, become it right. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. And I have to go now as my phone is ringing, but I hope we will be able to share much more about it very soon, because it's a beautiful process we're going through. And I love you all so very much. Please stay updated. I have beloved readings when I kind of personally tune into you, how you can master and integrate your polarities. I have a Cosmic Beloved course, and my sessions are always available via Skype. If you're here in Slovenia, in my country, you can also have a personal session. I just had that this week. It was amazing, beautiful, beautiful energy exchange. So thank you for always staying tuned and supporting and loving. I love you all so very much as well. Take care. Bye-bye. So, my beautiful, sweet beloveds, I also am guided to add something else to this video topic, because we all kind of perceive the beloved on our own level, where we are, where we see the whole of life in creation from our own angle point, from our own viewpoint. And those of us who are really shifting into creative partnerships, into union partnerships, which means that harmonious energies are interplaying in order to create more than just one aspect, so that more can unify and come into the light and the freedom of our truth and what we can create and establish through joint efforts. We really have to move on to the aspect of that which is creative, the creative part of us, instead of seeking a partner on just the physical level. So those who only perceive partnerships as in order to fulfill their physical needs are often seeking a partner. Like they're going to different places. Like I know people who go to the gym, to dance classes, outside in bars in order to pursue. They're looking for someone to fulfill or their physical life and their needs, their sexual needs, their cohabitation needs, all of these needs. This is just a lower identity level of seeking a partnership, which is just to cohabit, to exist. And I've explained this in my video about different levels of divine partnership, and this was last year. I shared this video, and I also talk about this in one of my courses, my Mastering Polarity course as well. And the thing is that we have to become that essence of partnership that we perceive. So if we perceive partnership only on that level, that's what we're going to get, because that's what we are creating. Everything is always the extension of what we create. If we feel partnership as a resolution of karmic ties and someone who will help us along our journey, that's what we're going to get. If we're looking for our soulmate in order for us to be more healed and whole, that's what we're going to get. And the thing is, we have this because we all exist in the multi-layers of the onion. We have this simultaneously. But more of us are now bringing focus to the aspect which is creation, which is the creative partnerships. And these are the harmonious partnerships of equal vibration that are just coming together. They're coming in alignment. They're divinely orchestrated, divinely guided. We don't know when they're going to happen and how. We simply have to surrender and let go. That doesn't mean we do nothing. We have to continuously walk the journey of our self-fulfillment, of self-wholeness, because the divine partnership in serving spirit and our uniqueness will always be coming through the lens of our creation and what we wish to create. So if you are guided to have a beautiful creative force, life force partnership, you got to be creative in your own life. You got to create a life of your own dreams. You cannot wait for someone to do that for you. And when you have that luscious Garden of Eden, that abundance, you create an invitation for that vibrational match to enter. And this is what a lot of us are moving into now, and we're joining our forces with another of that similar attainment in our mastery. So we had to go through many layers. Like I said, they're coexistent, they're parallel, and that's where we are. And just be with what you wish to create, become that in all levels.